Well, she's back. Been a little while since I've been able to get the old girl here out for a ride. I got some news to share. Nothing crazy, but without further ado, let's ride. Hi, I'm Chad, and welcome to another moto vlog. So today I'm on my way down to Cycle Gear to pick up a little bit of oil to top my bike off. She's not below the low mark, but she's a little bit lower than I'm comfortable with, especially considering I am loading up and going to Buttonwillow tonight. Tonight being the time that I'm recording this, not obviously the time that you're watching this. But I'm going up to Buttonwillow for the Aprilia Racer Days event. Gonna be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to it and excited to rip this bad girl on track for the first time in 6 months. So if you've been keeping up with what's going on in my motorcycling life, and sorry I haven't been posting quite as much as I would like to. Last couple weeks have been pretty crazy. Oh, there's some stuff in the road right there. Don't want to hit that. Looks good though from here. Whee! But anywho, if you did watch my last video, you will know that I was having some issues with my quick shifter, and that I was also taking my bike to Moto Club of Santa Monica for the 12,000 mile service, or 12,500, whatever it is. The major service with the valve clearance check and adjustment if necessary. As well as the spark plugs, they sync the throttle bodies, cleaned and lubed my chain, changed the oil, flushed the cooling system, even though I had that done like about a year ago. And just got everything back into tip-top shape. So, I got some good news and I got some bad news. Let's start with the bad news. It's not horrible, but it is extremely disappointing to me and myself because I dropped my Tuono. Now, I'm pretty composed for the most part, but I have my moments of distractedness and stupidity. And when I was bringing the bike back home from Moto Club, I loaded it up in my Sprinter cargo van, drove home, got home probably at like 9:30 p.m. It was very dark, and I was going to unload the bike. I got distracted as I was bringing it down the ramp by a car coming down the street from me with its headlights on. They're bright. I looked away. When I looked back, the bike was like leaned way over on the side of the ramp like it was about to fall off of it. I freaked out, let go of the right handlebar to try to grab the tank to catch it, and it just rolled backwards, and I did my best to soften the fall, but it fell over in my driveway right where the banking meets the sidewalk. So at least it was a fairly shallow angle, wasn't too far of a fall, but I did scratch her. In all honesty, the damage isn't too bad. My SC Project CRT exhaust took the brunt of the damage, so it's got some scratches on it. I'll throw a photo up here for reference. And unfortunately, when the bike hit the ground and it crunched the exhaust, it crunched into the swing arm a little bit, so the bolt that holds the exhaust to my rear set put a little ding and scratch in the swing arm, and there's some other scratches there. And unfortunately, if you know these Aprilia machines, specifically the Tuono V4 and RS V4, you'll know that the frame and the swing arm are both finished in this very nice polished aluminum. And unfortunately, if you scratch it, there's really nothing that you can do to fix it, unless you want to like take the swing arm off, completely sand it clean, and redo the entire polishing and clearing process, which in all honesty I think it would probably be more cost effective to just buy a new swing arm, which unfortunately costs $1,800. So the only other areas of the bike that got damaged were my rear brake lever, rear brake pedal, whatever you would call it, just kind of got bent, scratched up a little bit, but I grabbed pliers and bent it back, so it'll work. Just isn't the prettiest thing in the world. My bar end, and not my nice CRG Aero bar end mirror thankfully, but the normal handlebar end, which I put on this bike when I'm transporting it in my van because I use canyon dancers with these mirrors, especially if I'm going to a track day. Don't really want mirrors on your bike. You have to tape them if you did have them, so I just take them off and put the stock bar ends back on. The bar end got a little rashed, but I actually had the old bar ends from my Tuono RR that I used to have because I sold that bike with bar end mirrors on it. So I have one of those to slap on when I take my mirror back off, and that won't be scratched. But outside of that, the only other damage was to the engine case plastic cover. They call it like a muffling thing, some kind of an engine case silencer, but it's a plastic slider. It's got some foam padding on the inside to reduce the chatter that you hear from the gearbox and the clutch. But in reality, it's just a plastic engine cover slider, so you don't destroy your nice metal engine cases that are underneath. So there's a tiny little scuff on that. It's not that big of a deal, but that's literally all of the damage. Frame didn't touch the ground, gas tank didn't touch the ground, fairings didn't touch the ground, turn signal didn't touch the ground, tail didn't touch the ground, subframe, none of that. So I guess the swing arm didn't even really touch the ground either. It was just the exhaust hitting it. But all in all, not too bad. Could have been worse. So I spent my day yesterday removing the front fairing, which I'd never done before and was a little bit more complicated than I was hoping it would be, but doable. And I retorqued all of the chassis bolts. So all the engine bolts, the swing arm pivot bolt, both of the axles, all the fork pinch bolts, the triple tree top nut, everything. Let all that stress out of the chassis from the drop. I definitely heard a couple like creaking cracks, particularly when I was loosening up the engine bolts. That was the stress being let out of the chassis from the drop. So yeah, I feel stupid. It's the first time I've dropped a motorcycle in at least 7 years. Not including crashes, of course, but just straight up dropping a motorcycle. The last bike I dropped was my first bike, my 2003 CBR 600RR. So definitely a blow to the ego there. Been kicking myself really hard for the last few days over it, but you know what, at the end of the day, mistakes happen and it's just cosmetic damage. This is actually the first time I've ridden the bike since I retorqued all of my chassis bolts and everything, and it feels totally fine. Absolutely no different than it did before. So I'm sure it's good, but yeah, still a bummer. I was on the fence about my SC Project CRT exhaust for basically the entire time I've owned this bike anyways. Came on the bike and it is obnoxious. It sounds insane. Sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing, but now that it is scratched and I am OCD about this sort of thing, definitely going to replace it. Time will tell with what, but anywho. I'm also looking into some carbon fiber swing arm covers to not only hide the damage, but also to prevent any future damage from occurring should the bike be tipped over on that side again. Not that I am planning for that to happen, but you never do. So hopefully that's it though, because I really love my bike, and you guys, I cannot stress enough how much I have been kicking myself for dropping this thing. I felt like the biggest idiot. I spent 2 days just questioning whether or not I was mature and responsible enough to have such a nice motorcycle. Really put an extra blow on myself in that regard. So on to the good news. She's fully serviced, ready to go for more adventures, riding, and my track day, the Aprilia Race Days event that we are heading out to tonight. So I'm really excited for that. All 8 valves that were on the rear bank of cylinders were out of spec, so they're all in spec now. Front bank was good to go. Got new spark plugs. Again, the TBs have been synced. Fresh oil, fresh coolant. Greased all of the moving components, so steering head bearings, the swing arm pivot, all the good stuff. And they said they retorqued all my chassis bolts before, but you know, I'm OCD about this sort of thing, so naturally after I dropped the bike, I wanted to do the same just to make sure that she really was all good. Also got a new front tire on, brand new Pirelli Super Corsa TD SC3 front. Unfortunately, they don't make the SC2 front anymore because I really like that tire, which is what I had before. Got 2 track days out of it, and it was fantastic. Had a lot of street miles too, so very happy with that tire, but it's time for a new one. So I guess we're scrubbing her in right now too, basically. So that brings us to the quick shifter, which was the issue I was having before. I was having an issue before I took my bike in for service with the quick shifter, doing this weird double cut thing and just behaving very erratically. So I replaced the quick shifter sensor before I took it in, which seemed to fix the issue initially, but the next time I rode the bike after I recorded that video, started doing the same thing again, and I thought, oh, maybe it's because I'm getting lazy with my foot and the way that I'm moving it, because if I went really, really quick, it would be okay. But came to find out, because I mentioned this when I brought the bike in, that the quick shifter was being weird. And it also started to do this weird thing where if I just pulled the clutch in and tried to shift up 2 gears, it wouldn't catch the second gear. If I just pulled the clutch in and held it while I was coasting and tried to go like from first to third, so second, third, and then open the clutch, it wouldn't catch third gear. I would be stuck in second. It wouldn't be able to shift up a gear until I'd reloaded the transmission with the gas. So it turned out that my shift shaft, where it mounts in the transmission, was loose. So internally it was loose. And I noticed before I dropped the bike off, if the bike was in neutral, I had a lot of free play in the shifter. Like much more than I have on my Daytona 675R, which has attack rear sets, and I have them on the tightest ratio, so the shifter throw is the shortest it can possibly be. But even still, it seemed a little out of the ordinary, and it was. They tightened it up, and the play in neutral is almost none, in gear almost none. And as far as I can tell right now, bike shifting great, no issues whatsoever. So if you're having shifter issues you can't quite solve, it might be worth taking it to the mechanic or to an Aprilia tech and checking to see if your shift shaft is loose too. Never would have guessed that was the case, and it was on the, again, inside of the gearbox. So aside from that added play in the shift lever when the bike was in neutral, I had no clue. Well, that, and of course the fact that my bike did not want to change gears well. She'll still wheelie too, virtually of course. Those are some smooth shits. So yeah, mistakes were made by me, yours truly. Moto Club was awesome. They were super accommodating and took my bike with, I mean, it was still a few weeks notice, but every other Aprilia dealer in Southern California was quoting me, man, like 1 to 2 months before they'd be able to get my bike in the shop. So the fact that they were able to get mine in and turned around in about 3 weeks, I'll take that. Very happy and looking forward to some racetrack thrashing. It's gonna be a blast. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would sincerely appreciate a gentle little click of the like button, and if you consider subscribing for more motorcycling content and tomfoolery such as this. Like I said, going to the racetrack tonight, gonna be riding tomorrow. The video might not necessarily be posted tomorrow, but it will be soon, so stay tuned for that, and drop a comment below. Have you had shifter issues with your Tuono before? Have you ever dropped your Tuono before, or any motorcycle, the one you have now, one in the past? Let's commiserate together, because I'm feeling a little bit better about it, but at the same time, I'm still going to always look at those scratches and be like, part of the reason I want to cover them up. So smooth. Wow, that is so much better. But thank you again so much for watching, and I'll hope to catch you in the next one. Until then, later.